Now for what's tipping the scales, a major decision from the court is expected later this month in the murder case of Crystal Rogers. Her former boyfriend, Brooks Houck, was back in a Kentucky courtroom Monday as his attorneys were pushing to sever his case from his two co-defendants. Houck, along with father and son, Joseph and Steven Lawson, had been charged in connection with the disappearance and the murder of Houck's ex. Now, although we have to wait for the judge's ruling, here's Scripps News Lexington with a recap of Monday's hearing.
A mountain of evidence and arguments are offered as Brooks Houck's attorneys fight to keep his trial separate from the co-defendants. Brian Butler, the lead attorney for Brooks Houck, spent 90 minutes showing slides and playing videos from the many interrogations co-defendant Steven Lawson went through in 2023, trying to paint a picture that his client could in no way receive a fair trial if the three defendants are tried together next year. Videos, the defense says, clearly show detectives offering immunity and a chance to go home if they got the answers from Lawson they were looking for.
There's no way that doesn't incriminate Brooks Houck.
Defense counsel said he knows there's pressure to solve this case, Crystal Rogers' disappearance in 2015, but he believes incorporating those interviews of grand jury testimony would leave Houck exposed in court. The defense feels it would be impossible for a jury not to think that Lawson was implicating Houck. The Commonwealth, however, argues the interviews the defense is concerned about are useless anyway.
He is making this stuff up, and he's looking to them, and over time, they are feeding him this stuff.
Last Wednesday, of course, marked the 9-year anniversary of Rogers' disappearance and presumed murder, and Houck is the only defendant who's been charged with murder.
So we have no intention of using grand jury testimony from Steve Lawson against Brooks Houck. I can't use things that Steve said about Brooks against Brooks. That's testimonial evidence.
And no decision was made here today. Judge saying that won't happen until Joseph Lawson's next hearing, which is scheduled for July 18th. In Nelson County, Michael Burke, LEX 18 News.
All right, our thanks to Michael Burke for that report. Joseph and Steven Lawson charged with complicity to commit murder, and Brooks Houck being accused of murdering his girlfriend, Crystal Rogers, here. And so he really wants his case severed from their cases. But what's best for the interests of justice in this case, a case that has really just confounded the true crime community for many, many years? It still does, as her body still has not been found. Let's bring in our guest now, criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor Franz Borchardt, and criminal defense attorney and trial advocacy professor Don Malarczyk. Don, let me begin with you here, please. Looking at this from Brooks Houck's standpoint, do you think this is smart, what his attorney is doing, trying to get his case severed from the other two for trial?
Yes, Julie, absolutely. You know, we have a famous case, United States versus Bruton, that says if a co-defendant makes a statement that implicates the other co-defendant, they can't be tried together. And it makes good sense. Let's say that Franz and I are accused of robbing a bank. And my statement to the police is, look, I was the getaway driver, but Franz is the smart guy. He's better looking. He's the brains and mastermind behind all this. Well, that statement cannot come in against Franz because Franz's lawyer don't have the ability to cross-examine me. Every person has a right to not take the stand, so that denies the defense of Franz the ability to ask important cross-examination questions. In this case, Brooks's attorney would be denied possibly the ability to cross-examine the person who was accusing him, the co-defendant. So he has to make the motion to sever, and I think based on what we saw at the hearing, the judge should grant the motion.
Don Malarczyk, taking us to school, Professor. I love it. Thank you for all of that. Franz, so let's continue. Let's take it a step further. So knowing that the attorney is going to cite the case, Don just did for us, how do you think the court is going to come down on this decision and why?
So I agree 100%. This is like textbook Bruton. I think the court is going to sever. Look, the court has to balance, one, judicial economy, the cost of trying 3 cases versus 1, putting the victims through 1 versus 3 trials. But at the end of the day, the constitutional right trumps everything else. And if you want to convict this defendant and do it the right way, I think the judge is going to realize we have to sever it. And that is probably in the best interest of justice, in so much as that means 1 trial for this defendant and not some kind of weird appellate issue on the back end to where we have to try him twice.
Great points from you both. Let's take a listen to an interview that Brooks Houck did with detectives. This was back in July of 2015.
There are some people that she's associated with that are telling us that she had made some tentative plans to leave, like looking at an apartment at that store above the apartment above the store. I'm just trying to figure out if that was something that was ancient history or if that was something that was more recent.
Well, that's news to me. I don't know anything about that. I'll do whatever I can, but this is starting to get silly. I don't need an attorney. I haven't asked for an attorney. I don't need none of that. I'm innocent. I'm willing to talk to whoever. But this to me is really starting to get silly.
Okay, well, now it's gotten serious, and he is looking at having his liberty being taken away, potentially, depending on what this jury finds. Dawn, back to you on this. When we think about what these prosecutors are going to try to argue here, what would you be ready for from them when they're saying, no, 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 we want to join, try them all together for reasons like judicial economy and what you and Franz have said?
Sure. I think the prosecution is going to argue that, listen, Judge, juries are smart, right? And juries can follow the law. And Judge, you're smart, and you're going to tell this jury there's certain evidence that's going to be admitted, and you can only consider that evidence as to one co-defendant and not the other one. So that's an argument that prosecutors make in courts every day against severance. It's going to come down to, as Franz said, the judge's analysis of how complex is this case? How complex is the evidence? And does this violate fundamental constitutional rights to have your own case decided by the jury based on evidence only admissible to you? So it's a tough decision, but I think at the end of the day, the judge is going to have to grant this motion to sever.
I'm with you, Dawn. I think you and Franz are spot on with this. It needs to happen, even though these prosecutors are going to try to push back. I wonder if it's because of case weakness. Franz, I'm curious what you think about this. Of course, we all want to see justice for Crystal Rogers. She's the victim here. And her father, Tommy Ballard, his murder still unsolved. We want justice for him, too. This case is kind of unfolded in a way that's sort of backwards. It was, Joseph Lawson initially who was charged first. And, then we get Brooks Houck. Then we get Steve Lawson who's saying, I don't know why I'm charged. I gave all the information I had. Do you think that these prosecutors are concerned about weakness? And they still don't have her body.
So the absence of a body isn't necessarily a deal breaker. The viewers should know that surprisingly, you don't need a body to have a murder case. We call it corpus delicti. It's a fancy phrase for, essentially if we can assume and there was evidence to support that the person is deceased, we don't need the actual physical body. Now, that being said, as a former prosecutor, I liked having the body, right? I like knowing the cause of death. I like being able to prove that there was a death. The other side of this is something that people often lose sight of is, yes, prosecutors get to cherry pick the best cases and to lead with their best cases. But sometimes being a prosecutor means you have to try a difficult case. And it may not be a slam dunk. And you know what? That's what justice requires. So even in the face of a case that's not a slam dunk, they're going to do their job. They're going to put their best foot forward. I don't know that we're going to see 3 trials. Julie, I think that there's some deal play to be had here, which may mean some cooperating witnesses at some point. I mean, there already is allusions of that as the basis of the severance. So, it's complex, but not impossible to try. And sometimes justice means trying a tough case.
You're absolutely right, Franz. And I think your prediction's right, too, about whether 2 of these guys may roll on Mr. Houck, if his case is severed. I think that's a big question. We're going to watch out for that. We got to leave it there. Franz and Dawn, you guys are the best. Thank you so much for your insight and legal expertise this morning. We'll see you soon.